So, welcome to the first Friday night reading of the 2017-2018 year. Yep. There are in the audience tonight a whole bunch of first-year students here at Westminster School, and for you, this is the first time you've experienced this. Those older students have been coming regularly to these events because they grow to like them, and I hope you will too. My name is Michael Service, and I'm an English teacher here at Westminster, and the lucky person who gets to direct the Friday Nights at Westminster series. This series is made possible by generous grants from the Ensign Bickford Fund and the Ford Goldfarb English Department Enrichment Fund. We couldn't do this without their support. Before the festivities begin, I'd like to ask all of you to turn off your cell phones now. It's off, Diana? Was that Yak or Doc? Doc? That's about all the Ruski Yasik I actually speak. I've used it all up on Diana this year already. All right, this evening we are beginning the 9th season of Friday Nights at Westminster. From simple vision 9 years ago, the program has evolved into a series of 5 readings and 4 concerts every year. We are especially pleased with the lineup for this year. Be sure to check the school's website for information about all of the other upcoming readers and musicians, and we hope to see many of you back here for other events. The poster, which is displayed around school, but it's also all in towns all through the Farmington Valley, will give you a heads up on who's coming too, and we're very, very happy with the lineup this year. I think you'll enjoy the people and the musicians and the readers. So we'll open this evening with a reading by Nicholas Wee, class of 2018. Nick was the recipient of the Brian Ford Writing Prize last spring. Each year, the Brian Ford Prize is awarded to a 5th former, our term here for a junior, who is, in the opinion of the English department, the outstanding writer in his or her class. During his time here, Nick has demonstrated his abilities both as an expository writer and as a creative writer. Winning the prize brings the winner 2 things: a cash prize, and that's a very good thing, and also the obligation to write a piece over the summer to be read at the first Friday night reading of the next year, and that's a pretty scary thing. It just so happens that the man for whom the prize is named, former Westminster English teacher, who himself is a brilliant writer, is in the audience tonight. So Brian. So Nick, you have your work cut out for you. But knowing your work ethic, I'm sure you too will rise to this occasion. So please welcome our first reader of the year, Nicholas Wee.
One of the hardest things you could possibly ask someone to do is to write an essay or a story with no guidelines or direction whatsoever. Or maybe that's just the way I see things, personally. As a perfectionist, I thought long and hard about what to write for this fine Friday evening. Or at least I'd like to think I did. At the time I got the assignment, October 6th seemed like an eternity away, a long way down the road. So long that perhaps I'd be a completely different person by the time the day rolled around. It's funny how you can think about looking into your future and attempt to guess how much you'll change, whether it be over a couple of days, months, and even years. Did I manage to get into the school of my dreams after years of trying so hard to get the right score on the standardized test that will have absolutely 0 impact on my life after the whole admission process is over? Did I win the lottery? Or even better, do Jon Snow and Dany finally get with each other in Game of Thrones? Am I more Nick on some days rather than others? And typical of someone beginning to think about, or as of right now, caught in the middle of college season, I naturally began to think of the question of what makes me truly me. For those of you who aren't seniors asking themselves the very same question for their college essays, I can assure you that this particular question is perhaps one of the hardest questions there are to answer. Next to one, I always ask myself when I somehow manage to disentangle myself from my sheets and crawl out of bed at 7:30 a.m. sharp on every Saturday morning at Westminster School. Anyhow, the irony of the statement is clear. Shouldn't I immediately know what makes me, being me? Well, unfortunately not, and now, instead of just waking up tired and miserable on Saturday mornings, I have the comforting thought of not even knowing who I truly am. Somewhere along the way of me reflecting on life, I came to a realization that moments in our life that define us don't necessarily always have to be big, flashy moments, but rather are often the smaller everyday experiences that are often easily dismissed and forgotten. For example, here's one of the earliest college essay drafts I wrote on something as simple as watching movies with my family. 10 p.m., mid-December, a gentle yet just wintry enough dusting snowfall. This marks the oh-so-magical time when all the worries, trials, and tribulations of real life come to sudden halt. Without any words, and as if it were programmed deep within our genetic code, we immediately drop whatever we were doing, collectively shrug off all our problems, and eagerly grab the tools necessary for the rest of the night, whether it be a worn-out teddy bear of past days or a comfortable, cozy fleece blanket to snuggle in for the movie. Each night, one of us would have the great honor bestowed upon us of selecting a movie to watch for the night, inevitably turning the movie selection process not only into just a friendly joust to pick the very best movie, but also into a point of extreme pride in choosing a particularly memorable movie, or a total embarrassment in choosing a flop. Of course, we, seasoned and supreme critics, were the ones who judged the merit of the movie. With couches reclined, blankets tucked, and popcorn prepped, and just the dimness of the front light illuminating the room, we were ready to commence with the movie. Movie time with my mom, dad, brother, sister during Christmas time has become an unspoken, close to sacred family tradition, and marks the few weeks during the entire year we are together as a family under the same roof. The infinite time, I thought, in my own childish arrogance, I had together with my parents and siblings slowly deteriorated into a couple of weeks a year, as commitments, assignments, and jobs took over, and days rolled by, turning into weeks, months, and years in a ruthless blur of time. Everything changed, and what we previously had enjoyed without interruption now has faded into a distant memory. Yet the moment we all sit down in our little living room, snugly back in the comfort of the home I grew up in, slowly but surely we lapse back into long gone times of days that seem to be gone forever. The intimacy of the setting became the perfect time machine, steadily rolling back the years as if nothing had ever changed. In the comfort of our own living room, I'm transported to completely different, yet naturally vibrant and alive worlds. From living through 20th century history, accompanied by the antics of Forrest Gump, to witnessing the tragically beautiful masterpiece that is Shawshank Redemption. The mix of emotions provided by any good movie invokes a subsequent reminiscent naivety and purity of childhood for my family and me. My mom, innocently asking never-ending questions throughout the movie, with my brother patiently answering them. My dad, always a knowledgeable one, grasping ideas, messages, and thematic subtleties of each and every movie long before any one of us ever did. While my sister and I, quiet as we watched on, were stranded in a blissfully perfect state between the real world and the movie world. As the credits roll, we all immediately transition seamlessly into the role of professional movie critics, carefully choosing certain movie words and phrases that impeccably complement and spice up our own reviews of the movie until we come to a conclusion, although not without completely exhausting a thorough and more than often heated debate. 10 p.m., Christmas time, light snowfall outside. This marks a formality that takes priority over all commitments. As we all carefully line up, ready to step into a time machine created by the pure magic of movie night, we discard the burden of real life temporarily and step into a different reality altogether. One altogether free of responsibilities and with just each other for comfort and company. Yes, in thinking about what makes me, me, I'm constantly brought back to little moments of my life with my family, moments that we never think are important, but which turn out to be the ones we most remember, the ones that make all of us who we are. With the risk of this sounding like a Chapel talk, I challenge you to take a moment and step away from the continuous grind of real life, and really dig deep to find the small moments in your life that define who you are as a person, and more importantly, what makes you different. Find that one passion, interest, or hobby that really lets your personality shine through and brings out the best of you. And if you really don't want to do that, remember, At the very least, it can make your college application process a whole lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Normally, I ask the student reader to introduce our featured reader at these events, but tonight, I'd like to say a few words myself about our guest, Monica Wood. First, I should tell you that Ms. Wood has been here before as a Friday night reader in December of 2014. She read that night from her best-selling memoir, When We Were the Kennedys, and then talked in classes on Saturday about her novel in progress, about a strange little boy and a 104-year-old woman. At the time, I couldn't really wrap my mind around that premise. But I read that new novel, The 1 in a Million Boy, the week it came out in April of 2016. And I was so blown away, so captivated, so much in awe, that I felt compelled to reach out to Ms. Wood again. So, what's so magical about Monica Wood's writing? I've been a reader all my life. My parents knew I read under the covers every night after they said goodnight to me. I took their silence as enthusiastic encouragement. Over the years, I have read thousands of novels, and I've come at last to understand that I am looking for two things when I read a novel. I want a novel to engage me both intellectually and emotionally. I like books that have intellectual substance, that are about big ideas, that are often complex in their structure, that make me think hard as I read them. But I also like books that tell great stories, that are peopled by remarkable characters, that make me feel what it's like to be a human being. The best books for me are the ones that appeal both to my head and to my heart. Ms. Wood's books, and especially for me, the stories in Ernie's Ark and the novel The 1 in a Million Boy, combine impeccable craftsmanship with deep empathy and humanity. I've read Ernie's Ark 3 times, and The 1 in a Million Boy twice, and I know I'll read them both again. These are books that get better and better each time I read them. I marvel at the intricate architectonics and the deft use of language, but every time, I am brought to tears as I reach the final chapters. Please welcome back to Westminster, Monica Wood.
She is.
And Nick, congratulations. That was very well done. Thank you so much, Michael, for inviting me back. And thank you, Linda, for being my chauffeur today. I really appreciate it. There's such a nice feeling of warmth on this campus that I felt immediately here today and the last time I was here. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from The 1 in a Million Boy. And for those of you who have not read the book, it is about a friendship between a 104-year-old Lithuanian immigrant woman named Ona Vitkus and an 11-year-old Boy Scout who is coming to her house every Saturday in order to earn a merit badge in community service. This little boy is completely obsessed with the Guinness Book of World Records, and when he discovers that his new friend is 104 years old, thinks he might finally have a record breaker on his hands. So what happens is, on the second page of the book, the reader finds out that the boy has recently died of a 1 in a million heart ailment, and in his place on a Saturday morning arrives Quinn Porter, who is a journeyman guitar player, professional guitar player, who's the boy's father. Now Quinn wasn't a deadbeat dad, but he was an absent dad. He spends most of his time out on the road gigging and was not a very good father to this little boy. And he has been guilted into coming to Ona's house to complete his son's good deed. And the person who guilted him into this is Belle, his twice ex-wife, who is the boy's grieving mother. So the friendship that happens between Quinn and Ona is the engine that drives the plot of the story. But even though the boy is gone before the story even opens, he is present, and I would say, really, I think he is the main character. He is kind of hovers around the edges of every single scene, and we do meet him in 3 different ways. One is through flashback scenes, and I'm going to read one to you. One is through lists that he makes of world records, and he puts them in different order that gives us a sense of how he is thinking. And often these lists have to do with what's happening in the story at the time. And the other thing that he's doing is he's recording his elderly friend's life story. And through those recordings, we get excerpts of those throughout the book. And through those recordings, we come to understand the nature and the depth of the friendship this 11-year-old child and this 104-year-old woman had. That the friendship was two-way and it was deep and meaningful. So there's a lot of other stuff that happens in this book, but I think of this one as really a novel about the saving graces of friendship. So I'm going to read, the first thing is from chapter 1, and this is when Quinn first meets Ona. She was waiting for him, or someone, though he had not phoned ahead. "Where's the boy?" she called from her porch. "Couldn't make it," he said. "You Mrs. Vitkus?" He'd come to fill her bird feeders and put out her trash and tend her 60 minutes to the care of her property. He could do at least that. She regarded him peevishly, her face a collapsed apple, drained of color but for the small, unsettling, seed-bright eyes. "My birds went hungry," she said. "I can't manage the latter." Her voice suggested mashed glass. "Mrs. Ona Vitkus, 42 Sibley Avenue?" He checked the address again. He'd taken 2 buses across town to get here. "It's Miss," she said haughtily. He caught the faintest trace of an accent, nothing an ordinary ear would pick up. She had probably staggered through Ellis Island with the huddled masses. "He didn't come last week either. These boys don't stick to things." "I can't help that," Quinn said, suddenly wary. He had been led to expect a pink-cheeked charmer. The house resembled a witch's hovel with its dreary flower beds and sharply pitched dormers and shingles the color of thatch. "They're supposed to be teaching these boys about obedience. Prepared and kind and obedient. Kind and obedient and..." She wrapped herself lightly on the forehead. "Clean," Quinn offered. The boy was gone, clean gone, but Quinn couldn't bring himself to say it. "Clean and reverent, that's what they promise. They pledge. I thought this one was the real McCoy." "I'm his father." "I figured." She shifted inside her quilted parka. She also wore a hat with pom-poms, though it was 55 degrees, late May, the sun beating down. "Is he sick?" "No." "Where's the birdseed?" "Out back in the shed. Next to the door, unless the boy moved it. He gets his little notions. There's a ladder there, too. You're tall, you might not need it." "If I lowered the feeders," he suggested, "you could fill them yourself." She dug her fists into her hips. "I'm quite put out about this," she said. All at once, she sounded near tears, an unexpected key change that sped things up on Quinn's end. "Let me get to it." "I'll be inside." She aimed a knuckly finger toward her door. "I can supervise just as well from there." She spoke with a zeal at odds with her physical frailty, and Quinn doubted for the first time Belle's word that Ona Vitkus was 104 years old. Since the boy's death, Belle's view of reality had gone somewhat gluey. Quinn was awed by her grief, cowed by its power to alter her. He wanted to save her, but had no talent for anything more interpersonally complicated than to obey commands as a form of atonement, which was how he wound up here, under orders from his twice ex-wife to complete their son's good deed. After dispatching the feeders and running a push mower over the lawn, Quinn returned to the house, where Miss Vitkus stood at the door. No hair to speak of, just a few whitish cakes that put him in mind of dandelions. She said, "I give him cookies after." "No thanks. It's part of the duty." He expected cats and doilies, but Miss Vickis's house was pleasant and airy. Her kitchen table had been whisked clean but for 2 mismatched plates, a box of animal crackers, a deck of cards, and a pair of ugly drugstore reading glasses. The chairs smelled of lemon polish. He could see how the boy might have liked it here. "I heard you're 104, Quinn ventured, mostly to fill up space. "Plus 133 days, she said. She divided the animal crackers, 1 to each plate, over and over like dealing cards. Apparently there would be no milk. "I'm 42. That's 84 in musician years." "Well, you look older." Her greenish eyes glimmered over him. The boy had written in his faultless spelling, "Miss Vickis is extremely inspiring in her magic powers and amazing life events." This is capital letters. "Do you have help?" Quinn asked, "besides scouts?" "I get Meals on Wheels." She held up a cookie dinosaur. "This is their idea of dessert." She looked him over again. "Your boy told me you're famous, are you?" He laughed. "In my dreams." "What style of music do you play?" "Anything except jazz. Jazz you have to be born with." "Elvis?" "Sure." "Cowboy songs?" "If you ask me nice." "I always liked Gene Autry." "Perry Como?" "Perry Como or Gene Autry or Led Zeppelin or a cat food commercial, as long as they pay me." "Well, I've never heard of Ed Zeppelin, but I've seen my share of cat food commercials." "So, a jack of all trades." "A journeyman, that's how you stay working." She considered him anew. "You must be quite talented then." "I'm okay." What had the boy told her? He felt like a bug on a pin. "I've been working steady since I was 17. All at once she glared at him. "These boys don't stick to anything. We had ongoing business." "I guess I should go." "Suit yourself." She drummed her fingers on the well-used cards, which looked a little smaller than regulation. "My son says you do tricks," he said, unable to resist. "Not for free, I don't." "You charge him?" "Not him, he's a child." She slipped the glasses on, they were too big for her face, and inspected the deck. The boy had written, "Miss Vickis is extremely talented. She makes cards and quarters disappear, then they appear again. She smiles well." This was exactly the way he had talked in real life. Quinn said, "How much?" She shuffled her cards, her mood changing. "I shall regale you," she said, a magician's misdirection. Quinn had run into all manner of flim-flammery over the years, and this old bird was a champ. "Just the trick would be fine," he said, glancing at her kitchen clock. "You're in a hurry. Everybody's in a hurry." She was accordioning the cards now, hand in hand, less impressively than she seemed to think, but impressive enough. "I ran off with a Midway show in the summer of 1914 and learned the art of prestidigitation." Her eyes lifted as if the word itself produced magic. Reddening, she added, "I told your boy a lot of stories. Too many, possibly." He'd been right to fear coming here. The boy was everywhere. Quinn had never wanted children, had been an awkward, largely absent father, and now, in the wake of the boy's death, he was left with neither the ice-smooth paralysis of shock nor the crystalline focus of grief, but rather with a heart-swelling package of murky and miserable ironies. Miss Vickis fanned the cards and waited. $5, Quinn said, taking out his wallet. "You read my mind." She took the bill and stowed it in her sweater. After a moment, Quinn said, "Where's the trip?" She leaned across the table and gathered up the cards. "5 gets you inside the tent." He saw what was in her eyes now, anger. 5 more, you get the show. That's extortion. I wasn't born yesterday, she said. Next time, bring the boy. So that's Ona and Quinn's first inauspicious meeting. And then the other excerpt I'd like to read to you is just so you get to meet the boy a little bit. And this is, he has talked Ona into the possibility that she might be the oldest person in the world and owns some sort of record. And then he does a little research and realizes that at 104 years old, she's actually a spring chicken. There's a lot of people way older than that, believe it or not. So this is a little excerpt from chapter 4. On the 4th Saturday, before attempting his chores, the boy presented Ona with a printout of the vital statistics of a Madame Jeanne-Louise Calment of Arles, France, who died in 1997 with the apparently unbeatable title of longest lived person. 122 years, read the boy in a voice better reserved for 16th century proclamations, and 164 days. That's ridiculous, Ona said. Let me see that. There wasn't much, really. Madame Calment's life, like most lives, comprised a pileup of ordinary days, but that didn't prevent her, like most people, from bestowing advice. Daily chocolate, Ona said. That's her recipe for a long life. Checking these immortal pronouncements, the boy asked, "What's port?" "Wine. The French do like their wine." She looked up. "Where on earth did you get this? Have you ever heard of the internet?" "Of course I heard of the internet. I went through the orientation at the public library in the spring of 2000. Big to-do about nothing. Worse than watching TV. She looked him over. Beneath the misdirection of his genteel conduct and crisp uniform, he was a boy of the 21st century after all. Since her birth, she had witnessed the advent of automobiles, airplanes, automatic washing machines, atomic bombs, space shuttles, disposable diapers, and touch-tone, had received them all as a matter of course, her capacity for wonder peaking around 1969 with the moon landing. But this old-timey boy, who carried a phone the size of a baby's rattle and plucked information from France out of a machine in his bedroom, presented quite a conundrum. She smoothed her hands over her head as if to tidy up the technology it had already absorbed. He produced several more sheets, more interviews with Madame Calment, which Ona read start to finish, the boy looking over her shoulder. His breath was warm and on the sweet side. "Your Madame Calment is quite the little cock-a-hoop." "Read this one," the boy said, pointing. Ona read, "I have only one wrinkle, and I'm sitting on it." That's what your famous record breaker chose to say? For all posterity, or should I say for all posterior? The boy laughed out loud, that unnerving yip of his. It started and stopped as if on timers. Ona merely tisked. To think an honor such as this was wasted on a person of so little class. She looked at the woman's picture again, taken on the poor thing's 120th birthday. "That face could halt an anvil in mid-drop," she muttered. She tried to compare Madame Calment's squashy visage with others she had seen, but couldn't think of a single soul within the squintiest vicinity of her own age, let alone Madame Calment's. She hoped her hair didn't look this bad. "When's your birthday?" he asked, slipping a notebook out of the pack. "January 20th. He jotted down some numbers and slowly computed them. "That makes 18 years and 99 days to beat the record." "I can't last that long," Ona said. "This woman is some kind of freak." But even as she spoke these words, the time between now and then seemed bridgeable. "Nonetheless, I wouldn't mind giving Mrs. Parlez-Vous a run for her money." The boy all but caught fire with glee. "1," he said, "competitors must set clear goals. 2, competitors must understand the competition." He returned to his backpack, unzipped one of his myriad pouches, and removed another sheet. "The oldest currently living female is Mrs. Ramona Trinidad Iglesias Jordan, age 114, country of Puerto Rico. Mrs. Ramona Trinidad Iglesias Jordan, is also the oldest currently living person. The oldest currently living male is Mr. Fred Hale, age 113, country of USA. He looked up to see how this news was landing. Is there a record for oldest old crab? The boy took this question, like all questions, without irony. 1, a record attempt has to be sanctioned. 2, a record attempt has to be witnessed. 3, a record attempt has to fall within the boundaries of the law. 1, you mean boundaries. 2, Puerto Rico isn't a country, it's a territory of the United States. Thank you. He flipped the pages of his notebook and made a brief entry. Ona read the sheet of vital statistics, trying not to care and failing utterly. Madame Calment's record was ludicrous, certainly, but the others might be beatable. This is Puerto Rico, my political fight, she said, but how many people could possibly stand between me and Mr. Hale? Men with a life expectancy of gerbils. I might be 3rd or 4th in line. I'll find out, he fairly shouted, making another notation. He looked full, is how she remembered it later. As her rivals dropped, not like flies, like petals, bright and melting, she felt regret, along with a fragile thrill over her own accumulating days. The names seemed borrowed from a ship's manifest, a list of refugees from a war no one knew was raging, until they discovered themselves the last ones standing. Rosalie, Vittorio, Yasu, Clementine. She thought of them as family, as familiar and mysterious as the boy who had introduced them. So now you've met all the characters, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this book came to be. And some books come easier than others. This book was a very hard birth, as they say. I started writing it in 2004, after I got off the road from my previous novel, which was called Any Bitter Thing. And in those days, which isn't that long ago, but it seems so, I had 2 publishers. One was for my hardcover and one for paperback. And it's sort of an unusual situation, and it's not like that anymore. But so what happened was, the book came out, the last book came out in hardcover, and kind of didn't really do much of anything. And then the paperback publisher, which is this big commercial publisher, gave it a new cover, a new life. It went out in paperback, and it did really well. And in the meantime, this commercial, I'm not going to name them because they were very mean to me. This big commercial publisher, they sent me birthday cards, they kept me in the loop, they said, we really, really want to acquire you as one of our hardcover authors. And I thought, well, okay, so I really liked my other editor, but I thought, if something doesn't work out there, I've got this in my back pocket. So I spent 4 years writing this book, and that's how long it takes me to write a novel. It's always 4 years. Every time I start over, I think, oh, this one will just be 1 year, and I'm always wrong, because there's a lot of work to it. There's a lot of revision that you have to do. And so I finished it in 2008. And so I sent it to my agent. Her name is Gail, and she's in New York. And she said, okay, this is ready to go. So what we're going to do, and in the meantime, by the way, my hardcover publisher had completely cut loose its fiction line. A lot of stuff was happening in the publishing world, none of it good at that time. And you guys won't remember this, but in 2008, the American economy just went like that. And nobody was buying anything, including books. So several of my very good writer friends, people who had 3, 4, 5, 6 novels out there, well published, had been dumped by their publishers. So they thought, well, that is never going to happen to me. So I send my manuscript to my agent. She sends it to this publisher that was dying to have me as a hardcover publisher, author, and they dumped me. So I was very, very, very disappointed. And shocked and upset about the whole thing. And my agent at the time wasn't crazy about that version of the book. So when I asked her, I said, well, Gail, what's the deal? What, did they say anything or da-da-da? And this is her exact word. She said, oh, I don't think that would be productive. So clearly they hated everything about this book. So she said, why don't you just put this aside and we're going to kind of hold our place with this publishing company because I think this would be the best thing for your career. And you write another book, and then I'm thinking, I write another book? Okay, I'll have one for you next Wednesday. How does that sound? So anyway, I kind of put it aside, and it just felt like poison at that point. And I started, well, I didn't do anything for about 2 weeks except feel sorry for myself. And then about 2 weeks later, I started writing again because I had to be writing something. And what I started writing was about home. And I grew up in a mill town in Maine called Mexico, Maine. I started writing about 1 year there, which is the year my father died, when I was 9 years old. And it was also the year that President Kennedy was shot. It was also the year that the paper mill, which ran everything in town, went out on strike. And I just started writing. It wasn't fiction, it was nonfiction, which I had never done before. But there was something about being dumped by my publisher and knowing that nobody was waiting for the next novel by Monica Wood that liberated me in a funny way to start writing things that I never would have written. So I ended up writing this memoir called When We Were the Kennedys, and the subtitle is, I can't remember what the subtitle is, A Memoir from Mexico, Maine. And I ended up going all over the country with this book that I thought would never resonate anywhere beyond the confines of Oxford County, Maine, honestly. And so it was just an amazing thing. But I have to tell you, when I finished that book, I sent it to my agent, and she said, great, I love it. Sent it to that same publisher who rejected it. And so after I said, okay, well, we are definitely done with them. And I said, here are 8 publishers that I would love to work with. Let's send it out there. She sent it out on a Monday, and on Friday, we had 5 interested parties. And I ended up choosing Houghton Mifflin Harcourt for 2 reasons. One is it's the oldest publishing company in the country, and I love them for that. I like their list, the other authors that they publish. But the other thing is that they have editorial offices, and this is unusual, both in New York and in Boston. And I live in Portland, Maine, so I had this fantasy that I could get on the train, come down to Boston, and spend the day with my editor actually editing face-to-face, which never, ever, ever, ever happens anymore, ever. And it did. So one of the loveliest days I've ever had in my professional life was with my editor, Deanne, who's a wonderful editor there. And we sat in her office way up above in Boston. We sent out for lunch. We had 2 manuscript copies. I'm talking actual paper, remember that? We had paper, we had our laptops there, of course, as well. But we went page to page to page, like, what about this, what about that, what if we switch this word or that word? It was just so delightful. I was very excited about it because it was so unusual in this day and age where everything in publishing is now electronic, everything. So that was a very sweet thing that never would have happened if this novel had come out when I wanted it to in 2008. And I kept calling it my failed novel, and I couldn't even think about it. So I had promised my husband, who can be a real pest, that if the memoir ever was published, that I would go back to the novel, because I didn't think the memoir would ever be published. So after all of that, he said, okay, time to go back to that novel. I really want to read it. He had read it, he said, but I want to discuss it with somebody, because except for him and my oldest sister, nobody had read this book, and my agent and the people who hated it at the publishing company. So I said, well, there was something about having done nonfiction for the first time after being a novelist for so long. And I said, you know, I've always wanted to write a play. And I think I'm going to do that instead. Nobody's waiting for this novel. The memoir is out there. I've done everything I can do for that. I'm going to write a play. And I did end up writing a play called Paper Maker, which is based on my book, Ernie's Ark, which some of you, I think, have read. And it takes place in a Maine mill town where the mill's gone out on strike. And it deals with 2 families, the CEO and the vice president of the union. And this is, to make a long story short, it somehow, amazingly, got on the fast track to production, which also just never happens. So it debuted at Portland Stage, which is it's a regional professional equity theater company that does unbelievably professional, wonderful productions. And I ended up in the rehearsal room with 6 incredible actors and an unbelievable director for 4 weeks. And what we did together is we changed the script. I literally had my laptop and my printer in the rehearsal room for 4 weeks. So they'd be rehearsing a scene, and I would be typing away, changing it as they were doing it. Or I'd grab 2 actors and say, will you improvise this for me? Just talk, for father and son, just talk. And I would listen and get some ideas. It was really a thrilling experience. And what I realized belatedly is how much I had been craving teamwork. There's something about writing that is extremely, I'm not going to say it's lonely, but you're alone a lot. You're alone all day long typing in a room. And I've been alone typing in a room for 25 years. And I'm a very social person, but I also can bear a lot of solitude, which is what you need to be a writer. But you know, writing a novel is like you're out in a cold Black Sea, and all you have is a soggy life preserver and a whistle. And nobody cares if you drown. It's just, there you are in your little place typing away. When you are dealing with theater, and I'm sure some of you here are involved in theater, it's like a family. It's a team. It's like everybody piles into the lifeboat, everybody's rowing to the same place on the shore, and everybody has the same goal, is to make the thing that you wrote as good as it can be. And it was just a marvelous experience. And the thing that was interesting, this was in Portland, Maine, so because it was about something that happens in a mill town, people from mill towns in Maine came from all over the place to see this play. And this play ended up being the best-selling play in the history of Portland Stage, including their holiday shows and everything. And partly it was because of the story that it was. And they had 35 performances, and this is so nerdy and lame, but I went to every single one. Because I thought, well, this is never going to happen again, so I just wanted, to see it. And my husband went to almost all of them, not every single one. But every single night at the theater, it was like a high school reunion. Somebody from my high school class would be there, and because they'd come from Mexico or Rumford, the other town. But it was just a wonderful experience that, again, because of the failure of that novel, I ended up with a memoir that I'm really happy that I wrote, and a play that was the highlight of my professional career. So I think it was closing night. My husband looks at me and he says, "It's time." I said, "Oh, I'm not going, I just can't read it. I can't even read it. It's fine. I will read it to you." So for 4 nights in a row, my very sweet husband read 350 manuscript pages to me. And so any of you who want to be writers, marry somebody nice. Preferably somebody who is gainfully employed. But he did that for me, and by the end of it, I had 2 reactions. One is I thought, this is not a bad story. I kind of like this. And the other was, I need to do some more work on one of these characters. It was the character of Quinn. And so I spent another 6 or 8 months revising the draft. And at the end of those months, I sent it to my now editor at Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, and we sent it on a Friday, and they bought it on Monday. And what happened with that book is, again, I went all over the place with this book, and it now has 21 foreign editions in 30 countries, which has never, ever happened before in my career. And they say there's no revenge like success. I'm thinking that other publishing company is probably really sorry. But it's been a really amazing journey of this little book, I have to say. So just a couple of little things I'm going to say before I go. People think of the author tour. I've mentioned, going out on the road with these books. And author tours can be a lot of fun, and they can also be absolutely horrible. And with every author tour, you get the highs and the lows. So I'm going to just tell you 2 stories from the tour of this book. So one was, mostly it was really great, really nice audiences. And so you do radio interviews, you do library talks, you go to bookstores, you do all these things. So I was out in California, and the Bay Area is like, is anybody here from the Bay Area by any chance? It is a very, very literate place. They love books, they buy books, they come to book events. It's a really fun place to go. And what I remember about this, believe it or not, is the hotel, because this is one of those really fancy book tours where you come off the plane, somebody's holding your book, that's your media escort. They take you hither and yon where you're supposed to go, and you know, most tours are not like that, but this one was. And so she checks me into this place called the Aqua Hotel, somewhere in Marin County, very fancy, cheap place. And this, I still can't, you're gonna even think I've never been anywhere, but I still can't get over this hotel. So the room was so huge, it was all Japanese themed. So there was a waterfall in the corridor, and it looked over a lagoon. And my house could almost literally have fit in the bathroom of this hotel. So that was great. And then I did some things in Berkeley and San Francisco, and just lovely, lovely, lovely crowds, and people were really nice. So then we go up to Santa Rosa, and it was at a bookstore there in like a little strip mall. So I get out of the car, and my media escort is with me, and we walk in, and it's got that, what I call that mausoleum quality, where you know it's going to be a bad night. And authors call this reading to chairs, and it's when kind of nobody shows up. So there were about 8 people who kind of draggled in. Well, 8 souls were there, and 2 of the souls were dogs. This is California, okay? So this couple brings in, I didn't even know they came in miniature, but they were miniature Yorkies, wearing outfits for the evening. So they come in with their little dogs. Each dog gets his own chair. The dog in a chair. One of them was wearing, I'm not making this up, one was wearing a Hawaiian shirt. The other one had some sort of Scottish kilty thing on. I don't even know what it's supposed to be. So it was, needless to say, a terrible evening. But the most humiliating part of the whole thing is that the dogs were utterly enraptured by my every step. They're sitting up like this in their little outfits with their green eyes, just listening to everything I was saying. And I thought, you know, it really can't get a lot worse than this, but I said, at least it's a good story. So, anyway. So I know you guys have to get out to study hall or something. I can take one question maybe if somebody has something they're dying to ask. But otherwise, yes.
Were you involved with the casting of your show?
I was involved in the casting of the show. We went to New York, and it was kind of an amazing thing. I'm such a neophyte at that point when it comes to theater. So we saw, oh my gosh, I don't know how many people. And the first person who came in, I said, oh, that is Jake. And the director says, don't do that. You have to just temper your enthusiasm. There's going to be a whole lot of Jakes coming in here. This might not be the one. And it wasn't, as it turned out. It was the last guy we saw. It was perfect. But it was really interesting. The thing is, I don't know how many aspiring actors we have, but oh my God, if you think it's hard being a writer, these actors, you know, they go on these calls all the time, and they, you know, they either get called back or they don't. 99% of the time they don't get the part. And it just was, at the end of the day, I was just thinking, I was feeling so bad for these people. And then I said, okay, no, we need all names of their agents so I can write them a thank you note for auditioning. And they looked at me like they said, what? I said, well, don't you do that? I mean, it is, no, we do not do that. Because I just thought, wow, you schlep uptown, you come here. Some of them had memorized they call it sides, it's just one page of dialogue or 2. And some of them had memorized their sides. And I'm thinking, that's kind of a beyond the call. So, but I never got to give them, write one thank you because I couldn't locate anybody. So, yeah. Maybe one more question? Yes.
What are you working on now?
I am working on another play because I just fell in love with the whole process. So this one has a ghost in it. Well, thank you all very much. I really